This week, we explore the Syrian civil war and the question that many people don't know the answer to. What is it?
The fighting in Syria consists of the Taliban and the Kurds and the United States.
I'm pretty sure Bashar al-Assad, who's the president of Syria, it's his government and the Houthi rebels. Is that correct? Or is that someone else?
I don't know who Houthi are.
Well, it's the Syrian government, and they're having a civil war. So rebels in Syria.
There are rebel groups, yes. Any others?
That's all I know. I mean, no. Actually, that's false. The Syrians are fighting ISIS. I know that.
Right. I don't know.
It's like the two Muslim groups, right? I don't know. It's like Sunni and the Shia.
It's the government and terrorist group.
ISIS and the U.S., I think.
Jesus Christ. I don't know.
Do you know why the U.S. launched missiles at Syria?
To defeat ISIS.
Well, it probably has something to do with how our government is bought by the military-industrial complex. But don't listen to me.
America.
To get rid of the terrorist groups, right?
To prevent the government from the hostage situation. They're just killing civilians.
Yeah, to try to stop some terrorist organization.
No.
Do you know any other belligerents besides ISIS, the rebel groups, and the Syrian government?
No.
I know Syria is backed by the Russians, and then the rebels are more backed by the Western powers, like the United States, NATO, UN. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Russians.
Nope.
No. All right.
No.
No.
How many Syrians have emigrated out of Syria because of suppression?
I think over 1 million Syrian immigrants.
It's a lot. It's a lot of them. Is it in the millions? But I think I heard a number around 10 million of them. 5?
Yeah.
Whatever. It was double.
All right. 5,000 million.
10,000.
30,000.
That's better, probably.
Millions? I'm guessing 6, 7 million.
Millions?
Couple thousand.
Well, ISIS wants jihad, so they want a world. They want Islam to be the dominant religion in the world. I don't know. The Syrian government wants to stay in power. The rebels, I don't know what they want. If I had to guess, I'd say a more democratized Syrian government.
They want territory over. To practice their version of Islam and to assert power in order to practice their interpretation of Islam or some sect of Islam, I guess.
Jesus, I meant freedom for all. Jihad.
Power.
Not specifically, no.
Land, control, power.
How many deaths has this conflict caused?
Too many.
Range of 90 to 200,000.
Too many.
20,000.
Thousands? Hundreds, thousands?
I'd say at least thousands, hundreds of thousands.
I'm gonna say a couple 100,000. Let's dissect some of those questions you just heard. Ethan Gassé, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't we start off with where the crisis all started?
It's kind of a loaded question, man. It all goes back to about the 11th of March or 15th of March, 2011. There were some peaceful protests being held by the Syrian civilians. They were all peaceful. There was no aggressive acts or anything like that, but the government lashed out and their army actually opened fire on some of these protesters and 4 were killed. A couple days later, they were having a funeral service for the 4 that were killed, and the government showed up and opened fire on them too. Another person was killed that day.
That's some pretty heavy stuff. When did the warfare really start?
Well, after some of these protests and some of these shootings, a bunch of rebel groups got together and they got ammo and they got weapons, and so they lashed out against the government. Eventually ISIS got in, and that was also pretty messy.
What is ISIS?
ISIS is the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. They started back in 1999, and they're a terrorist group. They're not actually a rebel group, which is a big distinction.
What are some of the powers involved in this conflict?
Some of the powers associated, we got the United States. The United States is on the side of some of the moderate rebel groups. Then there's Russia, who's on the side of the Syrian government, and they've been supplying them with weapons and money. Then there's another superpower, is Turkey. They've taken in 2 million refugees, and they've also given the United States some of their air bases to launch some missiles onto ISIS.
And you mentioned 2 million refugees?
Yes, 2 million refugees.
How many refugees has this conflict produced in all?
So as I mentioned, Turkey took in 2 million, but across there's been about 5.5 million, although it's impossible to tell for sure. Some other countries that have taken in these refugees are Lebanon, Iraq, then there's Egypt, Turkey.
What about people who are registered for asylum?
So asylum, being registered for asylum is a lot different than being a refugee. Most countries that do asylum are European. Big examples of this are Germany, France, the United Kingdom. Sweden's a big one. There's also Denmark and just a few others.
From the interviews, do you believe that American students are educated enough on current events?
I would believe not. I think that there's a lot more that American students can do to keep up on current events, and I think some of this lies in the American education system. Things like this can be doing courses about current events solely. There can also be more current event assignments in class, although some classes already do current event assignments. I think there can be more about it. I think it's important that we put these current events together for young people, because sooner or later this world's going to be up to them, and the sooner we can get them engaged in the world around them, the better hands it's in when it's passed down.
Thank you for that. We will now show you exclusive footage of this situation in Syria. It's pretty violent, so keep your kids out of the room. As you can see from the discussion today, most of the world is not informed enough about the Syrian civil war. This is a direct correlation to how the education system handles teaching current events, and it portrays how a new approach needs to be taken in order to keep young adults involved in world politics. Thank you for tuning in.